So tonight we're going to have a very interesting podcast here. It's going to be myself just talking with my wife.
We were joking about how he was taking over the screen. I'm here.
Awesome. Maybe I should adjust
Adjust it for our heights.
Yeah, just for... Yeah. No, it's okay.
You moved it, and I can see the clips behind us.
Oh, God, no. It's a mice.
Wrong way. What are you doing?
Oh.
Wait. I'm going to turn this up.
There. Awesome.
You were the host of this podcast.
We are both the hosts of this podcast. Oh, let me get down.
Do you need a chair?
No, I'm fine. That'd be weird because then it'd be like that.
You can kneel on it.
Yeah.
All right. You're the host of this podcast. What are we talking about tonight, James?
Well, hey guys, welcome to the College Alternative Podcast. Tonight, I think we're trying something new here, something a little bit different, and that is we're just going to talk amongst ourselves here. And the subject for tonight is going to be introducing ourselves, a little bit of our background, and then I thought we could talk about maybe our educational plans for our own kids and why we're doing. What are you doing to the mic?
It's so close to you, but I talk quieter than you. I'm stealing it from you.
So we're already digressing from where we're supposed to be. So anyway, it's just going to be myself and Karen just talking a little bit about what our plans are for our three children. So
you know how to sell it.
Interviews with the best in their fields, teaching you how to excel in careers that don't require traditional college. You're listening to the College Alternative Podcast. Insider tips and advice, straight from the experts. And now, here is your host, James Christian.
It's okay. We'll do the intro before we do this part. How about that?
Yes, there you go.
After we're done, we'll think, what did we talk about that was really interesting, and we'll hook people.
So anyway, so a little bit about myself, and hopefully this doesn't sound too hypocritical, but we both do have college degrees. I have a degree in international relations with some business thrown in there, and then a partial master's in some homeland security, counterterrorism stuff that I started doing, and then kids were born, and suddenly, surprise, surprise, that just sort of went off into the wind. That really hasn't returned anytime soon. It's not on the radar. Karen, what's your background?
I have a PhD in organic chemistry education, and so I've got a lot of school that I went to.
And what do you do now, Karen?
I run a nonprofit with my husband.
And you stay at home with the kids too.
Yes,
too. So I think the big thing here is, hopefully this doesn't sound too hypocritical saying that we do have degrees, but we're exploring a lot of different stuff, because the reality is, Karen, you're not really doing much with your PhD, at least not right now. And I'm certainly not doing anything with my degree because, unfortunately, the job market just wasn't there for anything I wanted to do, and I found a job that didn't really require a degree.
Well, here's one of those things, too, is you get a degree in something specific. Like, I got a degree in chemistry.
Yeah.
And then I moved here with you, and there weren't really any jobs in chemistry. And, the thought is, well, to keep going Well, if nothing else, I can keep going to college to get more education. And plus, when you are in at least some of the STEM subjects, they'll actually pay you to go to graduate school. So, I mean, it was kind of like a job. So I don't know. It wasn't too bad.
That's a whole nother topic as far as
Yeah.
like what the actual job prospects are for those that get degrees in science, at least in the academic
world. And also
world.
that mindset of what you're going to do with your degree, right? So if you study chemistry, you think you're going to be, you're going to get a job doing a specific thing. Or if you get a degree in
Or a professorship that really
international
never.
relations, you're going to do something very...
I thought I was going to work.
specific to
Honestly, I thought I was going to work for the
relations.
State Department, and it turned out very, very differently. Anyway, but the big takeaway here is, we didn't really utilize our degrees too much. And talking with a lot of people that we know of, friends, family, colleagues, they've never really utilized their degrees, at least in our circle of friends. And so when we had kids, Karen and I got into a discussion as far as what our expectations were for their education, what we wanted to see to provide for them, and then that kind of transgressed into what the economy is going to be like in 15 to 20 years, because everyone's talking about how many jobs are going to become automated within the next 15 to 20 years. It's like, 40% of the job market out there is it's just a ridiculous number. So how do we set our kids up for success, both in education and then further along in careers? And so why do we, that was a big thing. And then the other thing was, I know a lot of you guys, there's parents out there, a lot of it's, you have a kid, you start your college fund. And
Right, because you have to start immediately from birth, otherwise you won't be able to afford.
And then your kids are still,
four-year degree.
and then your kids are still stuck with a huge debt that they can't pay off or are unlikely to pay off. Mm-hmm. So it's just a big deal. And so we just started talking about that and what we wanted. So I guess we can talk a little bit about the reason why we hashed this podcast out tonight is we kind of had a big conversation earlier on today as far as kind of the education side of the house, because our oldest is 5 years old, and so she's going to start, I guess, kindergarten or starting her education here pretty soon. So what our expectations were for her.
Right. So our oldest daughter is 5, and it is, I don't know less than half a year out from when school would start. And it is our intention that we're going to homeschool her, in part because we haven't heard very positive things about the school system in our area, and I don't know really any specifics. So, I can't say one way or the other whether or not they're founded or not. But I also, coming with my background from educational research, I have very strong viewpoints about, what is going to make someone succeed and what's going to be beneficial for them. And I last year, I was overhearing fellow parents talking about their kids going to elementary school, and I was thinking, gosh, I'm going to have a hard time being that sideline parent, because I'm going to hear all these things that these teachers are doing and be like, I'm outraged that you would use this methodology of teaching. So that's part of it.
Partially teachers have their hands tied here too, though. You really can't blame them for everything. And
yeah, no, but I think that's part of my personality as a whole, where I am easily outraged and I have very strong viewpoints. So, those parents had no issues with their teachers; they thought they were fine. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we totally understand though that a lot of listeners out there, they might not be able to be in a position to where one of the spouses can stay home, mm-hmm. or has the confidence to be able to stay home and homeschool. So I think we can get into a little bit as far as ways to supplement your kids' education a little bit mm-hmm. in terms of what the public school is teaching them, and then what you can add on top of that to make it even better for your kids. So we totally understand that.
I had an interesting conversation with a friend the other day about this idea of supplementation, because Mike Sathers, is that? Yeah. He was someone that James interviewed, and he talked a lot about the school system and about how it wasn't a good fit for him, and the different ways that he went about making the most out of his education, even up to the college level. And it's actually a very good episode, and you should listen to it.
Hint. Yes.
Yeah, we'll put a link somewhere there. But no, I mean, it was interesting, and we were talking about that, and she was talking about how she would supplement her students or her children, and she currently does, and her ideas about how to supplement looked very similar to what you would see in a traditional classroom. And I think that's kind of hard. You go to school all the time and you see what it is you're supposed to learn, and you just come away thinking whatever you learn in school, that's what your kids should learn. That's what is important.
Or that's the best way to teach.
Right.
Yeah.
Not only the subject matter, right, but also the methodology of teaching. So more worksheets after school, or more, spelling words. Or
I think that's the worst thing is laying on homework constantly.
Yeah. So...
I don't know. So I think what we could do is probably maybe label out a couple of the main goals. And this is probably going to change from early elementary to when they're in high school, as far as educational goals are concerned. But the main things that we wanted to do, at least initially, I had two. I'm trying to remember both of them.
This is our problem, is that our brains are not made for remembering it.
Hence the educational system again, Karen. But one of the big things that I wanted to have our kids retain is divergent learning. So the biggest way that I guess you could describe divergent learning is, the best example is a way to think outside the box, right? So if you were given a paper clip, and I ask Karen here, how many uses could you figure out for this paper clip? Average adult probably can think of maybe 10 to 20 uses. Well, a good divergent thinker can think of maybe 200, 300 plus ways, because they're not just looking at that paper clip as just a paper clip. They can think of it as being made out of rubber or foam or pink or 20 feet long or small. And so the big takeaway here is they found that people in kindergarten, divergent thinkers, seriously good divergent thinkers, they were about 90% were that good when they started kindergarten, but only a couple grades after that, that curve dropped dramatically. Yeah, plummeted. And so the big thing here, as far as innovation, that's going to be the key for at least America's economy. We really can't compete on manufacturing, but we can compete on innovation. So I want our kids to always have that.
I want to interject, sorry, before you stop talking about that test. Did they ever test people in specific fields of study, like entrepreneurs or something like that?
They might have. I don't know, though.
You would. I feel like you would do much better at that than I would. I'm very.
Yeah, well, it's a blessing and a curse thinking up ideas, and you're like, oh, I want to do this and this and this.
Continue what you're saying.
But anyway, that's a big deal for us, is for our kids to have that innovative mindset, to think of different solutions to problems. It'll help them as far as entrepreneurship goes. It'll help them in regular companies or corporations, being problem solvers versus just sort of towing the line. So that was a big deal for me, or that is a big deal for me, for our kids to be able to retain that.
Well, maybe we should talk about that a little bit. So from what you said, it sounds like...
Our dogs are playing in the background there. They're sleeping all day and they decided to wake up now.
What was I saying? Okay, so it would sound like from your study that you mentioned that... Should we put them in the kennels?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. So,
I think he fell back asleep.
Unlikely. All right, so it sounds like from the study that you mentioned, that our traditional school system kills divergent thinking.
Yes.
Fairly rapidly. And that's, I mean, I can completely corroborate that with my own experience, where in school you're not encouraged to...
Karen's actually making those noises. It's not the dogs.
This is really distracting. I'm going to pause this and let's go put them away.
Now we're rolling again.
That's going to make it harder. There we go.
Damn it.
You're the one who's going to be editing this, by the way.
Oh, great.
Okay, yeah. So the dogs needed to go outside, and they needed dinner because we forgot to feed them dinner.
Oops. Anyway, where do we leave off?
I don't even remember. Okay, so we were talking about divergent thinking, or is it divergent thinking or divergent learning?
Either way.
Thinking, probably.
Probably
Okay.
thinking, yeah.
So, and I think I was talking about how in our school system it crushes it just a little bit. And so, how do you get at that? Do you have ideas?
How do
'Cause
you
I have
teach
ideas.
it?
Yeah. How do you? Well, maybe it's not something you teach.
I don't have the PhD
Maybe
in this.
it's something that you need to preserve, right? Because if you're coming to kindergarten with really high skills in this ability to think, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably going to correct me on this, but I think it kind of flows into another goal that I wanted to have, which is project-based learning, having project-based goals, because that way they can think of solutions to problems that are created by the environment, not generated just by Wilson bought 36 watermelons at the local. I've never seen anybody buy 36 watermelons, by the way, at the grocery store. I should be that guy. But I think project-based learning, where they're coming up with solutions to problems in the real world, and projects could be something where it takes a year to, like year-long projects or short-term projects. So like things like that are relevant, things like starting an Instagram account to obtain subscribers, or starting up selling eggs at a farmer's market, or things like that, where they are tested to solve problems in the real world. I think that would be partially a good idea to maintain divergent thinking. I just think that school system kind of here's one answer to the problem, and it kind of crushes creativity, and that's what we really want to preserve in our kids. So what were your ideas?
Well, I was going to say that I think in your school system, there's a focus on what the right answer is. So whenever there's one right answer that you're striving for,
yeah.
and you make a mistake, getting the wrong answer becomes something that's punishable. So you have less of a motivation to try to be creative or think about what possible answers there could be, because you are being punished.
Well, and then
for...
the segue off of that is a lot of times in like the military aspect, you talk a lot about doesn't matter if you make the right decision or the wrong decision, just make a decision. And I think you almost get into like a decision gridlock if you're punished for making a bad decision. It's the guys that fail, the guys that just don't even try because they're scared to make the wrong decision or anything like that.
So
They'll always lose in the end.
Make a decision and commit to it is important.
Yeah,
Well,
that's good.
And another thing too, in school, you don't make you that's talking about kind of like decisions about where you're going with your life and all that. You don't get to make those decisions in school either. A lot of those are made for you, especially at the younger ages when you're told what subjects to study. So I think part of the problem with school is this right answer mentality. And also, with a classroom of 30 kids, it is hard to develop that, because you've got so many different voices and ideas, and you want to kind of focus in on one path to go as opposed to 30 different directions. I was going to say, because I enjoy science so much, we do a lot of science activities in our family, even at young age. So more science inquiry activity. And one of the things that bothers me about how most science is taught is that it's taught as this is the factual, set of knowledge that we have about chemistry, or this is what we know about biology. And you don't learn how someone thinks as a scientist. So you don't learn, how did people change their mind about, anything, the fact that the sun is the center of the universe.
Oh,
or
that's
the
kind of
sun's
cool.
in the universe.
Yeah, that's kind of cool how general society has changed. Like,
Right.
we're not the center of the universe. I.e. burning
Right.
people at the stake for saying different.
I say that I actually do remember learning about that in in school, but I feel like that was more history based than
Yeah.
science-based, because there are so many things where people think they have something figured out, and then there's some new idea that comes along and people don't accept it, and then you have to kind of try to incorporate that or create a new theory. Or even when you're doing a science experiment and you're looking at results, and people could look at it differently. You can interpret the results one way or another, especially if you're using statistics. You can skew statistics to say almost anything. People have this mentality that if a scientist says something, then it is a fact. And the truth is,
you're
you're
a scientist.
I know. It's true, obviously. I'm a scientist. You should believe everything I'm saying right now. But I mean, there's so much creativity that goes into it, and you have to look at someone's framework and all this. So my point here was that as we do our activities, we try to focus on interpreting results and trying to understand, or be creative. Like, what could we research next? What could we study next? Why do you think this is the way it is? And trying to come up with answers, as opposed to saying, we did this, confirmation to study to show you, yes, this is indeed what happens when you do X.
Well,
and
I think that kids, especially young kids in science, they need that creativity anyway to maintain a certain level of interest.
Well, it makes it so much more fun. I mean,
Yeah, it
they
makes
don't want to
more-
listen
yeah.
to me tell them what all the right answers are.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun when they can come up with them themselves. I'm trying to think. Our oldest just had, I'm not going to be able to remember it, but she just had like some insight on something that it was something that dissolved quickly.
What dissolves quickly?
I don't know. She figured out, I think
You're the
she figured
scientist.
out that like she figured out that these smaller little pieces of Alka-Seltzer were, when you dissolved it in water, it made the bottle rocket pop faster, because we timed it and we did some trials. And she came up all on her own, this 5-year-old, of the fact that, because they're smaller pieces, they must be dissolving faster because there's more of them and littler, and they can dissolve faster. That's making it work faster. So I was really proud of her. And that's way more important than
Well, you still need to know facts, but you need to have that balanced.
well, we're talking about divergent thinking
yes,
here, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think another goal, kind of moving on a little bit here, another goal that I wanted our kids to learn is the financial literacy. Again, talking with Mike Sather about it. Whether or not you choose to believe conspiracies as far as why schools don't teach financial literacy, that aside, it's just they really don't do a good job, or they really just don't address it very much. And so I think that's a huge thing to teach our kids is business and financial literacy. So when I say business, I'm saying, and this could be with the projects as well, it could be that marketing aspect. Hey, I would want your Instagram to grow to 10,000 people by the end of the year. How are you going to do marketing for that? How are you going to, if I give you a budget, how do you utilize that budget, or et cetera? Or with the eggs, how much are you going to have to price your eggs out
In order to make a profit.
and factor in time and energy that you
make it
use and
worth it.
feed. And so I think that's a big thing too, is the financial side of the house. And I'm not expecting, a kindergarten student to really fully understand, profit and loss and earnings and everything like that. But that could be something you build in over time, is all that profit flow sheets and cash flow sheets.
I feel like we could talk about allowance here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is not something we've even talked about.
But
really.
even allowance, a lot of allowance is just, you're just going to buy like a phone with it or food with it. I mean, you're not really actually utilizing that for a project.
So our children at this point do not have allowances.
No.
They have.
We never really even talked about that.
Yeah. I don't think at this age that they are old enough yet. Maybe soon. I don't know. But anyway.
Well, whatever. Yeah.
But I have heard of parents who will suggest, by suggest, I mean tell their children that this is how you're going to spend your money. A certain amount goes aside to go in your savings. A certain amount goes toward.
But I don't think those parents are giving them projects to work on, or
Right.
those kids have self-directed projects to work on.
But
more
it is,
importantly.
but it's a habit that you start. But I don't know, at the same time, I was given an allowance and I had to give, I don't know, like $1 or something a week at church. And I knew that I had to do that. And it doesn't translate the same when you have your own money. And I don't know.
I was getting money for lunch, but that's I spent it on lunch. Like, that was...
I don't know, sometimes I hoarded my milk money. Like, oh, look, I'm going to save my 25 cents.
You started buying milk shares at the at the cafeteria and started leveraging your milk money to...
Instead of buying milk today, I'm going to pay you my 25 cents for your gummy bears.
And then you traded that gummy bear up to like the chocolate milk level and everything.
Wait, that doesn't even make any sense.
No,
I'm not going to buy my milk,
Higher.
but instead I'm going to buy a... Okay, anyway. Yeah, I think you're right. When you just tell your kids what to do with their money, it's not as good of a learning experience as...
But that's a big thing that I wanted was having business oriented. I think entrepreneurship is kind of the way to go within 15 to 20 years, especially with middle class disappearing. And, you know, I mean, we could talk about the economy a lot too and where that's possibly going to go in the next two decades. But I think entrepreneurship is always something you can definitely fall back upon at the very least. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely a lot harder to learn that stuff in your 30s and 40s than it is starting out when you're young.
Learning how to run a nonprofit, for example.
Trying to desperately read as many books as possible and get mentors on board. But anyway, so financial literacy in business is the second thing that I really want our kids to achieve through their education. Anything for you?
I do. There's one thing that is big on my end, and I think this meshes really well with the first two things that you mentioned, James, which is when I was teaching chemistry, I would have these students come to me with questions, and they were doing their homework problems and they didn't know how to do it, and so they didn't do it and they just brought it to me. And to me, this was such a completely foreign concept that they realized they didn't know what the answer was, and then they just stopped. And they came to me when the homework assignment was due and asked me then, how to do it. Because I was one of those students who I could spend an hour working on a chemistry problem because, that's what I don't know.
Do you think that's kind of a spawn of the fact that we grew up in the 1980s and 1990s when internet was not as available and Google and answers weren't as readily available and easy to come by?
So that people don't work for their answer. Well, I don't know. Because now when you have a question, you have a way to answer it, right? You don't just say, oh, I wonder what that is, and then go on with your life. You have to look it up immediately. So I don't know. Maybe there should be more follow through.
Mm-hmm. Maybe more follow through. And then maybe taking time. It seems like our society is just running at a breakneck pace. Get through the homework as fast as possible because you have like 4 or 5 hours of homework after school, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, these students were not, they were not that much younger than me. This was when I was in graduate school, I'm thinking of.
Oh, they were younger than you, Karen. It's okay.
Well, they were younger than me, but they weren't more than.
Well, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here a little bit.
8 to 10 years younger than me, so. Yeah, so obviously there are going to be differences. Anyway, but that blew my mind that someone would not sit there and work on their homework like me. But first of all.
But then you've got 20 other problem sets that you still have to get through, and it's just that one subject.
I know. And then, of course, when you're teaching your subject, the one that you're passionate about, you always have this bias that everyone should be as passionate about it as you are.
Yeah.
So, I understand that, and I totally get that other people don't care as much as me. But my thought here was that this is something that I think is important that you follow through, at least on most things. When you have a problem that you don't understand, that you don't just give up, that you follow through and you work on it, and you work on it hard until either a problem or an answer materializes, or I don't know, you reach an impasse.
Well, maybe you need to almost look at the macro level on that and say maybe you need to slow your kids down and actually like schedule in almost like a meditation or some sort of way that they can just sort of meditate or think by themselves. Which definitely sounds kind of hippie-ish, but in all honesty, kids maybe need to actually center themselves a little bit and actually learn to think and internalize their thoughts.
I actually just had a thought. I wonder if it's a relic of parents doing their kids' homework. Do you think that's a possibility?
My parents never did my homework.
Mine didn't either. I mean,
Like, get out of here with that.
no, but if you don't know what the answer is, and some parents I hear hypothetically may do their kids' homework for them.
Not anymore with Common Core math. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but look up Common Core math. It's like atrocious. So parents no longer can help their kids, at least in that subject.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe your kids will work harder now and try to... Anyway, so I was going to say, though, that there was a summary of a study that I read. So I didn't actually read the original study, but it was a summary of it from the book Nurture Shock, which is a really good book, and I recommend it. But in their summary, they talked about I can't remember if it was a preschool or a kindergarten program where they were able to increase students' follow through on things, and it was through encouraging them to play for a very long time. So if they were engaged in something they were interested in and they stuck with it for a long period of time, they played the same pretend play that they were firefighters or something for an hour, and they weren't interrupted, and they were supported and encouraged to play, and everyone was engaged in the same activity, that helped them later on down the road to have follow through in other areas. So I think supporting your children in whatever it is that they're interested in, to be able to focus on it. And sometimes I'm guilty of this too, because I see what my kids are working on. I'm like, let's go do something else, or let's go do something.
Yeah, no, and I think what you're saying here is what happens further down the hill in their lives, if the ripple effect, because if they're interested in coding or computer science, and they're able to rip out 6 hours worth of learning how to code, and they can just concentrate on that, or concentrate on, a subject, or that's a great skill. They're not distracted. Oh, I need to watch some TV now, or I need to check my phone, or just lock into some project that they're passionate about. I think that's big, especially in the ADD world that we live in now. We're always constantly bombarded with everything.
People talk about multitasking and how terrible it is for you, and I'm a horrible multitasker. I can focus on one thing and only one thing at a time. But I don't know. I can't even imagine what someone would attempt to be successful at multitasking. I'm just...
Yeah. But again, 15, 20 years down the road, maybe that's going to be more the norm. I don't know. It's just I'm kind of excited, but also apprehensive about the future, just in terms of what's really going to actually take place.
Okay. So let's talk about this, though.
Yes.
So you want your kids to have divergent thinking. You want them to have ability to follow through on a project, to have financial literacy, and to have
business knowledge.
problem-based learning, or project-based learning, whichever one you ascribe to.
And then support them. I would say support them in projects.
So we're all like gung-ho. We're going to homeschool our kids. We're going to give them the perfect educational atmosphere.
And we know we're not going to be perfect.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not
in fact, I feel a little bit like a poser because we haven't actually, implemented most of these things we're talking about. But
having goals, having long-term goals is very, very important.
It is.
Though, too.
It's really important to have a vision for, to keep you focused on what those.
I think it's a lot harder to do that than just say, hey, my kids are going to public school. They're going to take care of them. They're going to teach them what they taught me. And I understand people are busy, and some people that's what they're going to do, and that's their plan. But if you can take a little bit of ownership in what you want your kids to achieve, and have goals for that, then I think you're a step ahead.
Well, let's talk about that. If your kids are in the public school or not, regardless.
Because we are under no assumptions that we're kind of the norm, being able to have Karen stay home. So
people do what they need to do.
Yeah.
That's great. I had an excellent public school education. Anyway.
I had an abnormal. I went to a high school that had, 36 kids in my graduating class. So very abnormal. How many did you have?
I think I had about 300 in my class.
Yeah, the high school here in town has like over a couple thousand
It does
total.
not.
Couple thousand total
Oh,
kids.
total? I thought you were going to say in the class. I was
No.
gonna say,
Who would want to attend that graduation? That would be, you'd be like, oh, 6 hours later.
Forever.
And they're like, Mr. Zuckerberg. Oh, thank goodness we're on the Z's. Finally.
Zuckerberg?
Well, hey, don't make fun of Zuckerberg.
I'm pretty sure he did not graduate from
High school?
From our
Oh,
high
no.
school. Anyway, so the question is, how do you supplement your kids' learning? Because there's a lot of this, what we're talking about, what we want may not be addressed in your school system, and you want your kids to have these skills so that they can think on their own, they can possibly make better decisions later on in their lives, or, I think it would also help set them up for entrepreneurship. Especially the divergent thinking.
Yeah. Well, and also it kind of dovetails into, everyone is kind of funneled from elementary school, and that trains them for high school, which trains them for college. And then suddenly college, there's a big saturation of college degrees out there. So everyone's going into masters, and that's going to be saturated within 5 years from now. And so, thinking outside the box, well, it is kind of true though, when you look at the stats. I mean, divergent thinking would be, hey, I can think outside the box. I can become an entrepreneur. I can go into a trade, etc. Right? But anyway, I think the biggest thing for parents who have kids in public schools and really don't have the option elsewhere is, I think, to first of all develop a plan or develop goals. Mm-hmm. First develop goals and then develop a plan. So how do you develop those goals, Karen?
Well, I think maybe it would be most useful to focus on how people could achieve our excellent goals for our kids.
Wow. And then we lost all of our 10 subscribers. Thanks, Karen.
No, I mean,
I think reading and then being around within a community of people that have like-minded goals.
I mean, your goals are completely relevant, and whatever they are, I think the importance of setting them is also important.
Well, it starts you down the path.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to say that you need to take our goals, but since we're talking about
backpedal on that.
But how do you achieve what it is we're talking about?
Oh,
right?
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to stay on topic here instead of.
Well, no, but I think the big thing is here, how can people come up with their own. They can have that divergent thinking to come up with their own self goals.
We're totally thinking differently here.
That's what makes us work.
I don't know. Don't people want to have the answers, the 3 answers to
You just complained about students coming up to you asking for the answer.
Oh, okay. So
I'm sorry, we're not marketing like traditional YouTubers. Here's the 3 steps to make $100,000 a year.
No.
The 3 easy steps.
No. Let's totally put that in our intro.
Yeah, that's totally. Yeah. This is how I did it.
Okay, so we're going to be good teachers in this because we're not just going to give you the answers, right? We're going to lead you on the path to self-discovery.
No, but I think it's developing goals. And I think whether you read books on it or listen to podcasts or, watch YouTube videos or TV shows and start taking down notes and start exercising that part of the brain, I think that's a big deal. Coming up with priority levels for your own kids, or for yourself. I mean, if you're still youth or adult trying to learn.
I would say giving your kid doesn't have a lot of ownership in their school system.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say giving them as much ownership about their time outside of school.
Maybe collaborating with them a little bit.
Yeah, would be important. So if they. A lot of times you sign your kid up for 20 different things, or
things that you wished you would have done, or hey, I played football. I want my kid to play football.
But
or
listening to your kid and figuring out what they want to do or what they want to quit, because that's a decision too that's hard to make, especially if you don't want to disappoint.
Yeah, but
parents.
they're taking ownership.
Yeah, help your kids take ownership of that, and whatever your kids do decide that they want to do, try to support it in whatever ways you can, not just by taking them to a class, but by talking to them about it or thinking of different ways to help them. Who was the business, was it Bob something?
Bob Pritchett?
Bob Pritchett, yes. I think it was him. In your interview, he talked about how his parents supported him.
Yes, that was him.
So he said, that no matter what it was he said he wanted to do, his parents would full on, tell him, well, if that's what you want to do, this is a path that you might need to take. These are the courses you're going to have to learn. This is and we will help you. We will show you how to get there if that's what you want to do. And I think that's important. So
at some point, though, I think as parents, you can allow them to fail to a certain degree as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important too, because you want your kid to constantly have that grind a little bit and get used to the grind of life, trying to get a project up and off the ground, and grinding through it, and then picking themselves back up if something doesn't work out.
I would reword that and say not that it's important that your kids experience failure, but it's important that your kids experience the comeback after failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Help them work through it.
That's why you're on this show.
To correct you.
To correct? Yeah. But no, I think that's setting goals and then allowing your kids to help you set goals, and then those goals can definitely change, and those that time frame can definitely change too. Mm-hmm. But how do you plan after those goals? How do you come up with a plan for teaching to accomplish those goals?
Well, I think you let your kids set the direction.
To some extent. Yeah, I mean, you need to play that mentorship.
Of course.
And take the parent responsibility because you have that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going with this.
I don't either. But
my point was just, let your kids have the freedom to explore things and support them. And I think that's big. And you know what, you can support them too by coming up with ideas for projects. So we talked about project-based learning. I think that hits a lot of the things we were talking about with divergent thinking and with following through, and even...
Oh, you're thinking like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So like having an end goal and then having the plan to come from A to Z, and then having like the B, C, D, all those different micro goals.
Mm-hmm. So something you could work with.
And then that kind of actually sets time frames too. You can actually hold them accountable a little bit as far as, well, you're planning on getting this done in 3 months, but why hasn't it taken you this long? It'd almost be like a VC or something. I don't know.
Well, hopefully if it's something that your kid enjoys,
we're not talking about
you're not going to be like, okay, this is your fun project. It's time to work on it. Why haven't you completed your goals yet?
Okay, Karen. This is why you're teaching them. But I don't know. It's just, I'm brainstorming here.
That's fine.
That's what I'm falling back on.
He is the brainstormer. Always a good brainstormer.
Yeah, it's good and bad.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Anyway, I feel like we are sort of at a kind of concluding, wrapping up point here.
Yeah.
You feel like that too?
Yeah, well, I kind of tumbled off a cliff there at the end, so I'm going to rapidly extract myself from this. So.
Oh, it's fine.
But if you guys have any comments or questions below, I don't know. It was kind of fun just talking with you here a little bit about our goals for our kids.
Yeah.
And I think we'll probably do this again.
Yeah, I think so. I can think of several things I like to talk about. And it kind of also helps explain our driving philosophy about what this is. So, about what college alternative is.
Ultimately, this was spawned from wanting the best for our kids and seeing what options were out there for them. You know?
Not just this particular episode of the podcast, but the entirety of college alternative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We don't want to lock them into a particular path in life. That's kind of the biggest thing that we've found. Some people go through life and they just sort of are on autopilot, and we don't really don't want to be like that anymore, and we don't want our kids to really ever experience that. So hopefully this channel is...
This is really a downer way to end right now.
No, hopefully this channel is actually helping you guys think outside the box and is helping you guys come up with ideas to be successful in life.
So if you enjoyed this episode, we need to do a couple things for us. Okay?
Yes, please.
We need you to, if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Then you'll get reminders of all the great things that we're coming out every week.
Yep.
If you are listening on iTunes, that's great. Also subscribe. It'll automatically download onto your iTunes. And if you're feeling particularly generous, regardless of where you're listening to this, come give us a...
If you're feeling saucy.
Yeah. come give us a review, because I hear that those are really useful for ranking in iTunes or something. I don't know.
Who knows what the algorithm for Google and iTunes is.
Yeah, comments, let us know what you'd like to hear about or what your thoughts are on this. And also, what are you doing with your kids to help supplement their learning and to make sure that they are ready for the real world when they're done with their schooling?
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think kind of almost creating a community of bouncing ideas back and forth off people. Mm-hmm. That's how we learn. That's how everybody learns, right?
We're social creatures.
So,
all right.
Later, guys. Thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks.